Not expected to file criminal charges after the IRS gave extra scrutiny to conservative groups. Investigators did not find proof of political bias when the agency dealt with organizations using names like Tea Party or Patriots.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. That report, that 15 seconds on CBS in the morning, ended a 6-month void where on CBS News, they did not once in the last 6 months until that mention the IRS scandal. 6 months. I'm not kidding. Joining us right now to talk about all this is Cleta Mitchell, attorney for several of the groups who were targeted by the IRS. Hello, Cleta.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's very frustrating, probably more so for you and your clients than for me, although I feel very frustrated. Now, when we, just clarify for me, when we hear that the FBI isn't going to come up with charges, is this also the same, is this the Justice Department investigation, which we now know is being headed by a woman who twice gave $3,000 to Obama for president and also gave money to the Democratic Party? Or are those two separate investigations?
No, she's the one heading up the FBI investigation.
That's what I feared.
She's the lead lawyer, and what ends up the way it works is you have an attorney who is sort of the prosecutor who's responsible for the particular case. And then the FBI, they're like the detectives that you see on the cop shows. They're the ones who are supposed to be conducting the actual investigation and going out and interviewing people and all that kind of thing. And so here we have the person that you point out, Barbara Brossman, let's say her name, who gave Brosserman, B-R-O-S-S-E-R-M-A-N, who gave maximum contributions on a government worker's salary, by the way, to the Obama campaign and to the Democratic National Committee. She also gave money. And she is in charge of this investigation. And the FBI has never once spoken to me, to any of my clients. One of my clients, the Tea Party Patriots, has weekly phone calls with hundreds of grassroots Tea Party leaders from across the country every Sunday night. None of them have been interviewed by the FBI. The lawyers in the other cases suing the IRS on behalf of various Tea Party groups, none of them have been interviewed. So this is really some crack investigation, isn't it? You know how this is possible? This is only possible with a media, as you just heard me say, that CBS went 6 months without mentioning anything until they mentioned that 15-second report you just heard that there'll be no charges. And that's the only way it's possible, because we know that Christie and Bridgegate couldn't get away with this kind of investigation into that because the media would go nuts. But they don't care about this because we know why. Well, I actually think that this is what George W. Bush used to call the soft bigotry of low expectations. And
how so? I know he used to refer to that with regard to minorities in education, but how so?
Well, I think that the whole press corps is acting in a racist manner. I think they're racist because they don't expect the same kind of level of activity and responsibility and integrity of this administration as they do of, say, Chris Christie. I mean, as you say, the media is all over Chris Christie. And what about the same kind of scrutiny of the Obama administration in any one of a number of areas with regard to what was the Chris Christie case about? Abuse of power, honest services fraud. Well, those are the same things we're dealing with here at this IRS scandal, is abuse of power. And we know that people in the FBI, high-ranking people in the IRS, told Congress that there was no targeting of conservative groups. And, in fact, we know now that that was a lie. And they knew it was a lie. What about perjury, lying to Congress? Ask Roger Clemens. That's still a felony last time I checked. How about when the IRS released the Schedule B confidential donor information of the National Organization for Marriage? That is on the books, on the federal books, as a felony and is supposed to be prosecuted. That is the FBI not looking at that? They didn't look at that, apparently. What about when Catherine Engelbrecht from Houston, who filed applications for 2 Tea Party groups, and within months of that, over this ensuing next year and a half, she and her husband were personally audited by the IRS. Their businesses were audited. They were visited 7 times by the FBI. They were visited by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms twice. They were visited by OSHA. Now, why isn't the FBI talking to me or talking to Catherine about that potential abuse of power? So, look, there are lots of questions that I would be happy to put on the FBI's radar screen to go investigate if they had ever contacted.
All right. Well, Cleta, and by the way, Cleta Mitchell is with Foley and Lardner LLP.
Lardner,
Yeah. But let me ask you. We only have 2 minutes left. What can you do now for these groups? I mean, now that there are no criminal charges filed, what are your legal options?
Well, look, I mean, we're facing the biggest thing we're facing right now. Well, I have filed suit. We have filed suit against the IRS on behalf of True the Vote, which is what it took to get their tax-exempt status, by the way. And we filed suit on behalf of the National Organization for Marriage to try to get to the bottom of the theft of their, or the disclosure of their confidential donor information. And look, now the IRS is trying to impose these same stringent requirements on all 501c4s that they were subjecting the Tea Party groups to over the last 3 to 4 years. And so now we've got a huge fight on our hands to try to stop the IRS from permanently silencing every grassroots organization in America. It's really quite frightening. People need to pay attention to what the IRS is doing because they think that now they're emboldened, they think they can get away with it. But I think we're going to spend the rest of my natural life in court fighting them.
And what about congressional support? I mean, obviously there have been hearings and there have been champions on the Republican side, but is anybody, are you in touch, is there anybody in particular that has been very helpful with your efforts here?
Well, I think Chairman Camp, Dave Camp, who's chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, and Chairman Bustani from Louisiana is chairman of the IRS Oversight Subcommittee. Chairman Issa, of course, Darrell Issa, and chairman of one of his subcommittees, Congressman Jim Jordan, who was the one who originally asked for the TIGTA, the Treasury Inspector General investigation.
Right.
So we're all working very hard. The IRS has, of course, been doing everything it can to stonewall and obstruct the investigation, which is another thing that I think the FBI should have been looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. Cleta, good talking to you. We'll talk to you again. Thank you very, very much.
All right, thank you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Cleta Mitchell, ladies and gentlemen, of Foley and Lardner, LLP, attorney for many of the groups targeted by the IRS. Very forthright and blunt. On the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.